Yinlin is easily the best sub-DPS in the game due to her high damage capabilities with very huge AoE, and on top of that, she can also give buffs. In this video, I will cover everything you need to know about Yinlin, including her kit and some playstyle tips, talent priority, sequences, best weapons, echoes, teams, rotations, and more. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Yinlin's basic attacks are just basic attacks that deal some electro damage. But if you notice, there's a mark on the enemies. This is called Sinner's Mark, and it is a very important part of her kit, and you will know why in a bit. Yinlin applies Sinner's Mark through her basic attacks, Resonance, Liberation, and Intro skill. This mark is removed when Yinlin exits the field. Her Resonance skill can be casted twice. On using the skill, Yinlin will deal damage to her opponents and enter execution mode. During this mode, her basic attacks and dodge counter triggers electromagnetic blast up to 4 times. This blast attacks all targets with the Sinner's Mark. Casting the skill again will do a stronger hit that deals more damage. The cooldown of this skill is 12 seconds, which starts right from the first cast of her skill. The animation of this skill can be swap cancelled. But if you swap cancel it, you won't get to use the second part of the skill as it goes into cooldown. You can swap cancel the second part of the skill if you can give a bit more field time to Yinlin. Her Resonance Liberation is a big chunk of damage with big AoE and has an energy cost of 125 and 16 seconds cooldown. It applies Sinner's Mark to enemies. The huge AoE is extremely helpful in multi-target situations to apply the Sinner's Mark. Now let's move on to her 4-day circuit. Yinlin fills her 4-day circuit bar with her normal attacks. Every part of her Resonance skill, which includes both the skill cast and the electromagnetic blast, and her Resonance Liberation. We earlier saw how Yinlin can apply Sinner's Mark to the enemies. When the 4-day circuit is filled, Yinlin can cast a special heavy attack which has a very huge AoE and deals good damage. It will replace the Sinner's Mark on the enemies with Punishment Mark. The Punishment Mark stays even when she is off-field. Hitting an enemy with the Punishment Mark will deal electro damage to all the enemies that are marked and can be triggered every second. Which means even if you hit one enemy with the Punishment Mark, every enemy on the field with this mark applied will take damage. The total duration of this mark is 18 seconds, which is quite long. The animation of her 4-day circuit heavy attack can be swap cancelled as well. Yinlin's intro skill just deals some damage and applies the Sinner's Mark. Yinlin's outrow skill gives 20% electro damage deepen and 25% Resonance Liberation damage deepen to the next character you switch into. This makes her an even more amazing pair with electro characters or characters that deal most of their damage from their Resonance Liberation. And we have a character that fits in both the categories, that is Calchero. This buff gets removed if the character that is buffed gets swapped out. Yinlin's first inherent skill gives her 15% crit rate buff for 5 seconds after using her Resonance skill. The second inherent passive increases the damage of the second Resonance skill cast by 10% when hitting enemies with the Sinner's Mark. Additionally, it increases her attack by 10% for 4 seconds. Yinlin is very flexible and can be used in 3 different ways. One is as a sub-DPS, where you apply the Punishment Mark on enemies and keep her off-field for the whole rotation of your main DPS. This is the most simple way to play Yinlin, although you won't be able to take benefit of Yinlin's full damage potential, but your main DPS can make full use of Yinlin's outrow skill. The other way is as a quick swap DPS with characters who can take benefit of animation cancels like Calchero, whose Death Messenger hit can be swap cancelled. This does remove the outrow skill buff, but the swap cancel lets you deal damage from both Yinlin and the main DPS at the same time, which makes up for it, as you are dealing damage with one character when the other one finishes their animation. The swap cancel also keeps you safe, which makes it more advantageous, but you need to have quick fingers. Aside from this, she can also be played as a main DPS where she does more basic attacks. Even though her main role is not of a main DPS, she has good personal damage, which makes her usable as a DPS. Moving on to her talent priority, the 4-day circuit takes the highest priority, because most of her off-field damage comes from the Punishment Mark she applies, followed by the Resonance skill, followed by her Liberation, then the basic attacks. The basic attacks get better for main DPS Yinlin or in a quick swappy playstyle. The intro skill can be ignored. Moving on to Yinlin sequences. I will just go over them quickly. The first 2 sequences are not that great and are not worth spending your money or astrites on it. It's just a 5 to 10% boost. Her real damage spike starts from the third sequence, as it buffs the damage multipliers of her off-field attacks. Unless you want to go for the S6, I don't think it's worth pulling for the S4 or S5. The S4 gives team-wide 20% attack buff, which is decent, but not worth your astrites. The S5 increases the damage of her liberation, which again is not worth it. And the S6 is obviously the best one. This makes playing Yinlin as a main DPS or a quick swap DPS much better. It basically deals nuke damage equal to 419% of Yinlin's attack up to 4 times after using her liberation. So yeah, a big upgrade. Usually for F2P or low spenders, I recommend going for the weapon instead of pulling for her sequences, as the weapon is a much bigger upgrade than S1 and S2 and can be used on other characters as well. Just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this video so far, do consider supporting my channel by liking this video and sharing it. Also make sure to subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content. Moving on to Yinlin's echo sets and skills. There are 2 main sets for Yinlin. One is the Moonlit set with the Heron Echo skill, which is generally the best in slot for most sub DPS, and the other one is the Void Thunder set for buffing Yinlin's personal damage. The Moonlit Cloud set works best for a pure sub DPS Yinlin where she is mostly off-field. This is because Yinlin's personal damage is not utilized much here, so it's better if you buff the main DPS with the set effect and the Heron Echo skill. The Heron Echo skill can be swap cancelled. If you are using her as a main DPS or in a quick swap team, the Void Thunder set gets better as it buffs Yinlin's personal damage, and you will be using her to deal a significant portion of team's damage. The Tempest Mayfie skill is the best one to use for quick swap Yinlin as it buffs your damage and the claw animation can be swap cancelled. After using the Echo skill, the Tempest Mayfies will first do the tail attack. Then press the normal attack once to start the claw attack and immediately swap cancel it. For main DPS Yinlin, the Thundering Mayfies is a better option. For most of the DPS, the Thundering Mayfies is not a good option as it takes a lot of time to cast. However, for Yinlin, that is not the case. The reason is because when Yinlin's skills are on cooldown, you will be using Yinlin's basic attacks, which doesn't deal a considerable amount of damage. So during that window, you can use the Thundering Mayfie skill, which has good multipliers and will provide buffs. For main DPS Yinlin, the Lingering Tunes with the Mech Abomination Echo skill is a great option, and only around 4% worse if you are not quick swapping. For quick swap Yinlin, you would want to avoid using the 5-piece Lingering Tunes set as you need to be on field for quite a while to stack it. The Moonlit Cloud set is a great alternative for quick swap Yinlin. Or you can mix and use 2-piece Lingering Tunes with 2-piece Void Thunder. So in short, Moonlit Clouds for a supportive playstyle, and DPS Echo sets, preferably the Void Thunder for main DPS or quick swap Yinlin. Now let's talk about Yinlin's energy requirements. For a pure sub DPS Yinlin, where she is off-field for most of the time, you will need around 140 to 150% energy regen. And for quick swap or main DPS Yinlin, where Yinlin has a good on-field time, she can get away with almost no energy regen. You can build around 110 to 120% energy regen to be on the safer side. 1 to 2 energy regen rolls will be sufficient. For her echo stats, crit on the 4-cost echo. Usually a crit rate piece is preferred unless you are using a crit rate weapon and have good crit rate substat rolls, as building crit rate is necessary. Try to aim for 50 to 60% plus crit rate. On 3-cost echo, double electro damage bonus is best. However, 1 electro and 1 attack percent piece on the 3-cost echo is only 4% behind given equal substats. An attack percent on 1-cost echo. You can also make a 4-4-1-1-1 echo cost pattern for Void Thunder set, as there are 2 boss echoes from this set. Crit rate on 1 echo and crit damage on the other one. An attack percent on the 1-cost echoes. This is a worse option, but is much easier to farm. For substats, energy until required, which depends on how you play her, followed by crit stat, attack percent. Then comes Resonance skill damage bonus. Resonance liberation damage bonus is decent. Same with the basic attack damage bonus if you are using her as main DPS or quick swap DPS. For her weapons, her signature weapon is obviously the best option. It has crit rate as its secondary stat and gives damage bonus. Additionally, it gives 12% attack boost every time a resonance skill hits a target, which can be stacked twice. This is perfect for Yinlin as she can cast her skill twice. And when the character is off-field, they get an additional 12% attack increase. This is generally the best rectifier we currently have. The Cosmic Ripples provides a ton of attack percent. The basic attack's damage bonus is not much utilized in a pure sub-DPS role, but for main DPS Yinlin or in quick-swap playstyle, it can be useful. The Battle Pass weapon, Augment, is a great alternative. It gives crit rate and provides attack boost after casting Resonance Liberation. This weapon in R5 is very close to the Cosmic Ripples and better in scenarios where you are not using Yinlin's basic attacks much. Jinju Keeper is a decent alternative, but is sadly a gacha weapon. For F2P weapons, we don't really have great options. The 3-star weapon R5 Rectifier of Night is the best F2P weapon for Yinlin's damage. The variation is situationally good where you need energy regen on Yinlin. Similarly, the craftable weapon Rectifier 25 is good when you need the energy regen. Moving on to Yinlin's team comps. Yinlin, being a strong sub-DPS, is very flexible. As we all know that Calchero is usually the best pair with Yinlin, he synergizes perfectly well with her for a quick swap playstyle, as you can swap cancel Calchero's every Death Messenger hit. Even with a pure sub-DPS playstyle, he is the best pair with her because he can fully utilize her buff and deal high damage. Other than Calchero, you can use her with any other DPS characters, as she can deal good off-field damage with very big AoE, even if her buffs are wasted. And the last slot is Flex, usually used by a sustained support like Verena or Baiji. For quick swap playstyle, you can play her alongside a DPS or hybrid DPS, as Yinlin's attacks can be swap cancelled. Other than Calchero, Encore is a great character for this role, as her Resonance skill and 4-day heavy attacks can be swap cancelled. And during Yinlin's ability's downtime, you can spend some on-field time with Encore's Liberation. You can check out my complete Encore guide for more details about her. Havoc Rover with the Dreamless Echo skill, Sanhua, Mortified, etc. are some other great options. For main DPS, where you want to see Yinlin on the field for most of the time, you can pair her with a buffer like Tao Chi, who buffs resonant skill damage, Mortifi, who has good off-field damage, Sanhua, who buffs basic attack damage, or even a hybrid DPS that can deal damage without taking much field time like the Havoc Rover with Dreamless or Encore. Now for her rotation. Her sub-DPS rotation is quite simple. Let's take Jian, Yinlin, Verena team for example. You first start by filling Verena's Concerto energy bar by half. Then swap to Yinlin. Use both of her skill casts and basic attacks to fill some of her Concerto and 4-day circuit bar. After this, you can go to your main DPS to use some of their skills. Then go back to Verena, fill her Concerto bar. If your DPS needs swap cancel, for example Jian needs swap cancel for the Monkey Echo skill. So after Verena, I switch to Jian, use his Echo skill and swap cancel into Yinlin. Then apply the Sinner's Mark either by using the Resonance Liberation or normal attack. If your 4-day circuit is not filled, you can fill the remaining part by using her Elemental skill and basic attacks. Then use her heavy attack followed by the Heron skill and swap cancel it by going to Jian. Then do Jian's combos. If your DPS doesn't need swap cancel, you can go directly to Yinlin after Verena and then to the main DPS. In a quick swap playstyle, you swap cancel the skills of Yinlin and the main DPS you are using for a safer playstyle. Yinlin can swap cancel her Resonance skill and 4-day circuit heavy attack. Yinlin works the best with Calchero in a quick swap playstyle because you can swap cancel the Death Messenger hit of Calchero. After every Death Messenger cast, swap to Yinlin to either use her skill, Liberation, special heavy attack, or weave in some basic attacks if the skills are on cooldown. Make sure to swap cancel her skill and special heavy attack as well. There's a nice quick swap Yinlin and Calchero showcase on Bilibili. It would be better if you watched that video. I will link it in description. And the main DPS rotations are quite simple. You basically just need to give your supports buffs to Yinlin and spend most of the time on field with her. Make use of swap cancel techs wherever necessary. And that's all for this video. I hope it was helpful. Make sure to like and share the video and subscribe to my channel for more Wuthering Waves content. Thanks for watching.